"Shoot him!" Captain Raymond Harris pointed at Marcus Thompson's head, his voice cold as the February night. "He's seen too much. The mechanic dies. The kid dies. No witnesses." 12 hours earlier, Marcus had been just a single father trying to get home to his son. Then he found her, a female cop, bleeding out in a ditch, begging him not to call 911. He should have kept driving. Now he was on his knees in his own living room, a gun pressed to his skull, while his 8-year-old son screamed from the bedroom upstairs. One decision. That's all it took to destroy everything. Comment your city below. I want to see where this story reaches. And hit subscribe. What happens next will shock you. "Daddy, when are you coming home?" Marcus Thompson pressed the phone against his ear with his shoulder, both hands deep inside a Chevy engine that refused to cooperate. "Soon, Jalen. Real soon." "You said that yesterday." "I know, little man." "And the day before." Marcus closed his eyes. His son was 8 years old and already knew how to twist the knife. "Mrs. Henderson needs her car for work tomorrow," Marcus said. "If I don't fix it, she can't get to the hospital. She's a nurse, remember? She takes care of sick people." "But who takes care of me?" The question hit Marcus like a bullet to the chest. He pulled his hands out of the engine and gripped the phone properly. "Jalen, listen to me. I'm doing this for us. Everything I do is for us. You understand?" Silence. "Jalen?" "Mama never made me feel like I was waiting." The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone. His son had just hung up on him. 8 years old, and the boy had more fire in him than most grown men Marcus knew. Just like his mother. Maya had been gone 3 years now. Cancer. The kind that eats you from the inside, while doctors shake their heads and send bills that could bankrupt a small country. Marcus had sold everything to keep her alive. The house, the second car, his father's watch, his dignity. None of it mattered. She died anyway. Now it was just him and Jalen against the world. A black man and his son in a city that had forgotten them both. Marcus finished Mrs. Henderson's car at 1:23 a.m. His back screamed. His hands were raw. His stomach had given up, reminding him he hadn't eaten since noon. He locked up the shop and climbed into his truck. The heater groaned to life, pushing weak, warm air against the frozen windshield. The drive home took him through the industrial district. Most people avoided these roads at night. Drug deals, gang activity, the kind of trouble that found you whether you were looking for it or not. Marcus wasn't worried. He'd walked through Kandahar with a rifle and a prayer. Detroit's east side didn't scare him. His headlights caught the skid marks first. Fresh, black rubber carved into the asphalt, like someone had been running for their life. Marcus slowed down. His eyes followed the marks off the road, down an embankment, into the darkness below. "Not your business," he muttered to himself. "Keep driving. Go home. Jalen's waiting." He pressed the gas. Then he hit the brakes. Damn it! He pulled over, grabbed his flashlight, and stepped out into the cold. The wind cut through his jacket like it wasn't there. His breath came out in white clouds as he made his way down the embankment. The flashlight found metal. A black sedan, flipped on its side, half hidden in a drainage culvert. No plates. Tinted windows. One of them shattered. "Hello? Anyone in there?" Nothing. Marcus moved closer. His boots crunched on broken glass. He pointed the flashlight through the shattered window and felt his stomach drop. A woman. White. Maybe 35. Blood covered half her face. Her body hung limp from the seatbelt, arms dangling like a puppet with cut strings. "Hey, can you hear me?" He reached through the window, fingers searching for her neck. The pulse was there, weak, thready, barely hanging on. Marcus pulled out his phone. His thumb hovered over the 9. Her hand shot up and grabbed his wrist. Her eyes flew open, blue, wild, terrified. "No!" Her voice came out in a ragged gasp. "No police! They did this! They'll kill me! They'll kill you!" "Lady, you need an ambulance. Listen to me." Her grip tightened with strength that shouldn't have been possible for someone half dead. "Captain Harris, Detroit PD. He's dirty. They're all dirty. If you call 911, I'm dead. Please, please." Her eyes rolled back. Her hand went slack. She was out. Marcus stood frozen, phone in hand, a stranger's blood on his fingers. Captain Raymond Harris. He'd seen that name on the news 100 times. The hero cop. The guy who cleaned up the East Side. The one they talked about running for mayor someday. This woman said he tried to kill her. Headlights appeared on the road above. 2 sets, moving fast, slowing down near the skid marks. Marcus killed his flashlight and pressed himself against the wrecked car. His heart hammered so loud he was sure they could hear it. Voices drifted down from the road. "She went off here. Has to be. Check the ditch. Harris wants confirmation. If she's alive, then make her not alive, and anyone else who saw her." Flashlight beams swept across the embankment, coming closer. Marcus had maybe 30 seconds to decide. He could call out, identify himself, explain he was just a mechanic who stumbled onto an accident scene. Maybe they'd believe him. Maybe they'd let him go. Or maybe they'd put 2 bullets in his head and dump his body next to hers. Maya's voice echoed in his mind. The measure of a man isn't what he does when it's easy. It's what he does when it costs him everything. Marcus made his choice. He cut the woman's seatbelt with his pocket knife, caught her body before it hit the ground, and lifted her over his shoulder in a fireman's carry. She weighed nothing. Adrenaline made him strong. He moved through the darkness, away from the flashlights, away from the voices, every step taking him deeper into something he couldn't undo. The drainage culvert led to a side road 200 yards away. Marcus's truck was visible from there if he circled back through the tree line. Risky, but staying put was suicide. He ran. The woman bounced against his shoulder, unconscious, bleeding, completely helpless. Marcus's lungs burned, his legs screamed, but he kept moving, kept pushing, kept running until he reached his truck. He laid her in the back seat, covered her with a moving blanket, and slid behind the wheel. The engine roared to life. He pulled onto the road without headlights, driving by moonlight and memory. In his rear-view mirror, he saw the flashlight beams still searching the embankment. They hadn't found the car yet. But they would. And when they did, they'd know someone took her. Marcus drove for 20 minutes, taking random turns, doubling back twice, making sure no one was following. By the time he pulled into his garage and killed the engine, his hands were shaking so bad he could barely grip the steering wheel. "What the hell did you just do?" he whispered to himself. The woman in his back seat didn't answer. Getting her inside was the easy part. Keeping her alive was harder. Marcus laid her on the couch and assessed the damage. Head wound, deep but not fatal. Scalp wounds always looked worse than they were. Possible concussion. Bruised ribs, maybe cracked. Defensive wounds on her hands and forearms. She'd been fighting before that car crashed. Fighting hard. He found her badge in her jacket. Detective Sarah Mitchell, Detroit Police Department. The photo showed a woman with sharp eyes and a harder smile. Nothing like the broken figure bleeding on his couch. A cop. He'd just kidnapped a cop. Number. He'd saved a cop. From other cops. This was insane. Marcus cleaned her wounds with supplies from his first aid kit. The Marine Corps had taught him battlefield medicine, how to keep someone alive long enough to reach real help. He worked quickly, efficiently, trying not to think about the implications of what he was doing. "Daddy?" Marcus spun around. Jalen stood at the bottom of the stairs, Spider-Man pajamas hanging loose on his small frame, eyes wide as dinner plates. "Go back to bed, Jalen." "Who's that lady? Why is she bleeding? Did someone hurt her?" "Jalen, bed, now." "But now." The boy flinched. Marcus never raised his voice, not ever. That was Maya's rule, and he'd kept it even after she was gone. "I'm sorry, little man." Marcus crossed the room and knelt in front of his son. "I didn't mean to yell. This lady was in an accident. I'm helping her. But I need you to do something very important for me. Can you do that?" Jalen nodded slowly, still scared. "I need you to keep this secret. Don't tell anyone at school. Don't tell your friends. Don't tell anyone at all. This is just between us. Okay?" "Why?" "Because if the wrong people find out, they'll kill us both." "Because some secrets are important," Marcus said instead. "Can I trust you?" Jalen's chin lifted. "I can keep a secret. I never told anyone about the tooth fairy not being real." Despite everything, Marcus almost smiled. "That's my man. Now go back to bed. I'll be up to check on you soon." The boy padded back upstairs, glancing over his shoulder one more time before disappearing. Marcus turned back to the woman on his couch. Sarah Mitchell, detective. Undercover, probably, given what she'd said about Harris. Which meant she was into something deep. Deep enough that the captain of the Detroit Police Department wanted her dead. And now Marcus was in it too. He sat in the armchair across from her and waited. There was nothing else to do. The sun would rise in a few hours. Jalen would need breakfast. Mrs. Henderson would want her car. Life would go on. Or it wouldn't. Around 4 a.m., she woke up screaming. Marcus was on his feet instantly, hand clamped over her mouth, voice low and urgent. "Easy, easy. You're safe. You're in my house. My name is Marcus Thompson. I pulled you out of that wreck. Remember?" Her eyes were wild, unfocused. Her hands clawed at his arm. Then, slowly, recognition dawned. "The mechanic," she whispered. "That's right." "You didn't call the police." "You told me not to." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she tried to sit up and immediately gasped, clutching her ribs. "Don't move too fast. You're pretty banged up." "My gun. Where's my gun?" "Locked in my safe." Her eyes went cold. "Give it back." "No, that wasn't a request. And this isn't a negotiation." Marcus crossed his arms. "You're in my house. My son is upstairs. I just committed about 6 felonies to save your life. So before I give you back the thing you could shoot me with, you're going to tell me exactly what the hell is going on." Sarah Mitchell studied him with the calculating gaze of someone who assessed threats for a living. "How do I know you're not one of them?" "If I was, you'd already be dead." "Maybe you're waiting for backup. Maybe you called Harris the second you got me here." "Lady, I didn't even know who Harris was until you said his name. I'm a mechanic. I fix cars. I raise my son. That's it. That's my whole life. I don't want any part of whatever you're into." "Then why did you help me?" The question hung in the air between them. Marcus thought about lying. Thought about giving her some noble answer about duty and honor and doing what's right. Instead, he told the truth. "Because my wife died 3 years ago. Cancer. I watched her fade away for 18 months. Couldn't do a damn thing about it. Couldn't save her. Couldn't even make it hurt less." He paused, the old grief rising in his chest like bile. "When I saw you in that car, bleeding out, I thought, I thought maybe this time I could save someone. Maybe this time I wouldn't have to stand there feeling useless while someone slipped away. Sarah's expression shifted. The suspicion didn't disappear, but something else joined it. Something that looked almost like recognition. "You lost someone too," she said quietly. "Everyone loses someone. Not everyone goes into a ditch to save a stranger." "No, they don't." Silence stretched between them. Outside, the first gray hints of dawn were beginning to lighten the sky. "2 years ago," Sarah said finally, "I had a partner. Detective James Walker. We were engaged. He was the best man I ever knew. Honest, brave, stupid enough to think he could take down the biggest corruption ring in Detroit PD history." She paused, and Marcus saw her jaw tighten. "Harris had him killed. Made it look like a gang shooting. I watched James die in the street, and there was nothing I could do. Nothing except survive. Nothing except gather evidence. Nothing except wait for the right moment to bring them all down." And tonight was supposed to be that moment. "I had a meeting with the FBI. A handoff. Everything I've collected for 2 years is on a flash drive. Recordings, documents, account numbers. Enough to put Harris and 15 other dirty cops away for life. But someone leaked. They found out. They ran me off the road and started shooting. So Harris knows you have evidence against him." "He knows, and he'll do anything to get it back." Marcus processed this. His situation had just gotten a lot worse. "You said 15 cops. How high does this go?" "All the way up. Harris is just the field commander. There are people above him, politicians, businessmen, people with real power. The drug money flowing through Detroit PD funds campaigns, buys judges, owns half the city council. If I bring down Harris, the whole house of cards collapses. And they'll kill everyone who stands in their way. They already have. 8 witnesses in the past 2 years. All ruled accidents or suicides. One guy shot himself twice in the back of the head. That's the official story." Sarah laughed bitterly. "These people don't play games. If they find me here, they'll kill you. They'll kill your son. They'll burn this house down and make it look like a gas leak." Marcus felt ice spread through his chest. Jalen, his boy, upstairs, asleep, dreaming whatever dreams 8-year-olds dream. He could walk away right now, call Harris himself, turn her in, claim he didn't know anything. The thought lasted about 3 seconds. "Then we need to make sure they don't find you." Sarah blinked. "What?" "You heard me." "You can't be serious. I just told you what these people are capable of. Your son—" "My son is the reason I'm not turning you in." Marcus leaned forward, his voice hard as steel. "If men like Harris can murder cops, buy politicians, and run drugs through this city with no consequences, what kind of world is Jalen growing up in? What happens when he's a teenager and ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time? What happens when some dirty cop decides my boy is a convenient target?" He shook his head. "No, I've spent my whole life keeping my head down, following rules, staying out of trouble. And where did it get me? My wife is dead. My son thinks I don't love him because I work too much. And men like Harris run this city like their personal kingdom." Marcus stood up and walked to the window. Dawn was breaking, painting the snow in shades of gold and pink. It would have been beautiful if he wasn't scared out of his mind. "You want to bring these bastards down?" he said without turning around. "I'm in. Whatever you need, however long it takes, I'm in. You don't even know me." I know you're willing to die for something you believe in. That's enough." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. When Marcus finally turned to look at her, she was staring at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You're either the bravest man I've ever met," she said slowly, "or the dumbest." "Probably both." She almost smiled. It looked painful on her bruised face, but it was real. "Okay, Marcus Thompson, if we're doing this, we're doing it my way. No heroics, no stupid risks. You do exactly what I say, when I say it. Your only job is to keep yourself and your son alive. Understood?" "Understood." "And I need my gun back." Marcus considered this. Then he walked to the safe in the corner, punched in the code, and pulled out her service weapon. He handed it to her, grip first. "Don't make me regret this." Sarah took the gun and checked the chamber with practiced efficiency. "I don't plan to." Somewhere upstairs, Jalen's alarm clock started beeping. 6:30 a.m. Time for school. Marcus looked at the ceiling, then at the wounded detective on his couch. "How are you with breakfast?" "What?" "My son likes pancakes. Can't send him to school on an empty stomach. You eat too. You'll heal faster with food in you." Sarah Mitchell stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. But Marcus Thompson was done running from trouble, done keeping his head down, done pretending the world would fix itself if he just stayed quiet and worked hard enough. His wife was dead. His son was growing up too fast. And the city he called home was rotting from the inside. It was time to fight back, whatever the cost. Jalen came downstairs at exactly 6:47 a.m., backpack already on, hair sticking up in 3 directions like he'd fought his pillow and lost. He stopped dead when he saw Sarah sitting at the kitchen table. "The bleeding lady is awake?" "Her name is Miss Sarah," Marcus said, flipping a pancake. "And yes, she's awake. She's going to stay with us for a little while." Jalen walked slowly toward the table, studying Sarah with the unfiltered curiosity of childhood. His eyes lingered on the bandage on her forehead, the bruises on her face, the way she held her ribs when she breathed. "Does it hurt?" Sarah looked at the boy, really looked at him, and something in her expression softened. "A little, but I've had worse. My mama had cancer. She said it hurt a lot, but she didn't want me to worry." Jalen climbed into his chair and reached for the orange juice. "Are you going to die too?" "Jalen," Marcus's voice carried a warning. "It's okay," Sarah said. She leaned forward slightly, meeting the boy's eyes. "I'm not going to die. Your dad saved me. He's very brave." Jalen considered this information while chewing his pancake. "Dad's not brave. He's just Dad. He fixes cars and makes me eat vegetables." "Those things can be brave too." "Vegetables aren't brave. They're gross." Sarah laughed. It came out rough, broken by pain, but it was real. Marcus watched the interaction from the stove, something tightening in his chest that he couldn't quite name. The bus came at 7:15. Marcus walked Jalen to the end of the driveway, one eye on the street, scanning for anything out of place. "Remember what I said," he told his son. "This is our secret." "I know, Dad. I'm not a baby." "I know you're not, little man." Jalen hesitated before climbing onto the bus. Then he turned back and hugged Marcus's legs, quick, fierce, the way he used to when he was younger. "I'm sorry I hung up on you last night." Marcus's throat tightened. "It's okay, son." "I don't really think you don't care. I was just mad." I know. Now get on that bus before you're late." He watched the bus disappear around the corner, then stood there for another full minute, making sure no one was watching the house. The street was quiet, normal. Mrs. Patterson was walking her dog. Mr. Kimball was scraping ice off his windshield. Everything looked fine. That was the problem. Everything always looked fine, right before it wasn't. When Marcus came back inside, Sarah was standing at the window, peering through a gap in the curtains. "Your neighbor," she said. "The woman with the dog. She looked at your house 3 times while you were outside." "That's just Mrs. Patterson. She's nosy. Looks at everyone's house." "Nosy can be dangerous." "She's 73 years old." "Doesn't matter. All it takes is one phone call. One mention to the wrong person that you have a guest who wasn't here yesterday." Sarah turned away from the window. "We need to establish a cover story. Something simple. Something that explains why I'm here without raising questions." Marcus poured himself coffee. "Like what?" "I'm your cousin from Ohio, visiting for a few weeks while I recover from a car accident." "I don't have family in Ohio." "Your neighbors don't know that." "Mrs. Patterson knows everything about everyone on this street. She'll ask questions." Sarah's jaw tightened. "Then we need to give her answers that satisfy her curiosity. The more normal this looks, the safer we are." Marcus sat down across from her. "How long?" "How long what?" "How long until this is over? Until you can contact the FBI again? Until I can stop looking over my shoulder every time I walk outside?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice carried a weight that made Marcus's stomach drop. "I don't know. My contact at the FBI, the one who was supposed to receive the evidence, he's either dead or compromised. I have no way to know which. If I reach out through normal channels, Harris will find out within hours. The city leaks like a sieve." "So what's the plan?" "I need to find another way in. Someone I can trust. Someone Harris hasn't bought or killed." She rubbed her temples. "I've been working this case for 2 years. 2 years of my life. And now I'm back to square one, hiding in a stranger's living room, hoping the men who killed my fiancé don't find me." The bitterness in her voice was sharp enough to cut. Marcus thought about what she'd told him, about Detective James Walker, about watching him die in the street. "Tell me about him," he said. Sarah looked up. "What?" "Your fiancé, James. Tell me about him." "Why?" "Because you've been carrying this alone for 2 years. Because you're sitting in my kitchen with cracked ribs and a target on your back. Because maybe talking about it will help." She stared at him like he'd suggested she sprout wings and fly. "I'm a detective. I don't talk about my feelings." "Neither do Marines, but sometimes we do anyway." The silence stretched between them. Marcus waited. He was good at waiting. The Marine Corps had taught him that too. Finally, Sarah spoke. "James was the best man I ever knew. Incorruptible. In a department full of guys looking the other way, taking bribes, playing the game, James wouldn't bend. Not for anyone." Her voice caught slightly. "That's what made him a target. That's what got him killed." "How did it happen?" "We were working a case, following money. Harris had been running drugs through the East Side for years, using his position to control the supply lines. We had documents, recordings, witnesses. We were so close." She shook her head. "Someone tipped Harris off. James went to meet a source one night and never came back. They found his body in an alley the next morning, shot 6 times. The official report called it gang-related violence. But you knew better." "I knew. But knowing and proving are different things. Harris had alibis. His people cleaned the scene. The investigation went nowhere because Harris's friends controlled the investigation." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. "I watched them bury my fiancé while his killer gave a speech about what a tragedy it was." "So you went undercover?" "I went to war. The kind of war where you smile at the men who murdered the person you loved, where you pretend to be one of them while gathering evidence that will destroy them. She met Marcus's eyes. I've done things in the past 2 years I'm not proud of. Things that would make you look at me differently. But I did them because it was the only way to make them pay. Marcus nodded slowly. He understood war. He understood doing ugly things for necessary reasons. And the flash drive? The evidence? Sarah reached into her jacket and pulled out the small device. It looked ordinary, cheap, the kind of thing you'd find in an office supply store. Everything is on here. 2 years of work. Recordings of Harris discussing drug shipments, bank account numbers for offshore accounts, names of every dirty cop on his payroll. Enough to bring down not just Harris, but the entire network. If you can get it to someone who can use it. If. She tucked the drive back into her jacket. That's the question, isn't it? Marcus's phone buzzed, a text from his employee at the shop. Customer asking about the Henderson car. You coming in today? He looked at Sarah, at the bandages, at the fear she was trying hard not to show. I have to go to work, he said. I can't disappear. It would raise too many questions. I know. Will you be okay here alone? Sarah's hand moved to the gun at her hip. I've been alone for 2 years. A few hours won't kill me. The doors are reinforced. I had them installed after a break-in 3 years ago. Don't answer if anyone knocks. Don't go near the windows. If anything seems wrong, Marcus, she almost smiled. I'm a detective. I know how to hide. He grabbed his jacket and keys, then stopped at the door. There's food in the fridge. Help yourself. And there's a TV in the bedroom if you get bored. I don't get bored. I get paranoid. Good. Paranoid keeps you alive. He left before he could second-guess himself. The drive to the shop felt longer than usual. Every car in his rearview mirror looked suspicious. Every unmarked vehicle made his heart rate spike. This was his life now. Fear. Paranoia. Looking over his shoulder. At the shop, Marcus forced himself to focus. Customers came and went. He smiled, made small talk, pretended everything was normal. Around noon, his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered anyway. Thompson's Auto Repair. Mr. Thompson, this is Captain Raymond Harris, Detroit Police Department. Marcus's blood turned to ice. I'm calling about the accident last night. We found a wrecked vehicle near your route home. Wondered if you might have seen anything. Stay calm. Stay calm. Stay calm. Can't say I did, Captain. What kind of accident? Single vehicle. Went off the road near the industrial district. The driver is missing. We're concerned for her safety. That's terrible. Hope you find her. We're doing everything we can. Harris paused. Thing is, Mr. Thompson, we have reason to believe she may have been picked up by a good Samaritan. Someone who didn't realize the situation and took her somewhere to help. Makes sense. Cold night like that, anyone would stop. Exactly. So I'm calling residents in the area, asking if they've seen anything. A woman, mid-30s, dark hair. She might be injured, confused, maybe not making a lot of sense. Marcus gripped the phone so hard his knuckles went white. Haven't seen anyone like that, Captain, but I'll keep my eyes open. I appreciate that, Mr. Thompson. Really do. Another pause. Longer this time. You know, I make it my business to know the folks in my district. You're that mechanic, right? The one with the little boy? Single father? That's right. Must be hard. Raising a kid alone, working all hours. I have a lot of respect for men like you. Men who step up when things get difficult. The words sounded friendly. The tone underneath was anything but. Just doing my best, Captain. I'm sure you are. Listen, if you do see anything at all, you call me directly. Not 911. Me. He rattled off a phone number. Some situations require personal attention. I understand. I knew you would. Have a good day, Mr. Thompson. Give my regards to your son." The line went dead. Marcus stood frozen, phone still pressed to his ear, heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his teeth. Harris knew. He didn't know for certain, not yet, but he suspected. The call was a warning, a message. "I know where you live. I know about your son. I'm watching." Marcus wanted to throw up. Instead, he called home. Sarah answered on the first ring. "What's wrong?" "Harris just called me, at my shop, asking about the accident." Silence.
What did you tell him?
Nothing. Played dumb.
But Sarah, he knows something. He mentioned my son. He knows I have a son. Did he make a direct threat?
No, but the implication was clear.
He's watching me. Sarah's voice went cold, controlled. The voice of someone who'd lived in danger so long it had become normal. Okay, this changes things. We need to move faster. I need to contact someone I trust, and I need to do it today.
How?
There's a reporter, investigative journalist at the Detroit Free Press. She's been covering police corruption for years. Harris has tried to shut her down a dozen times, but she keeps digging. If anyone will believe me, she will.
Can you trust her?
I don't know, but I'm running out of options.
Marcus closed his eyes. What do you need me to do?
Come home. Don't stop anywhere. Don't talk to anyone. We need to plan our next move.
He hung up and told his employee he was leaving early. Family emergency. The guy didn't ask questions. Marcus never left early, so if he was leaving now, it had to be serious. The drive home took 12 minutes. It felt like 12 hours. When Marcus walked through the door, Sarah was standing in the middle of the living room with his gun safe open and empty. "Where are my guns?"
Hidden, in case they search the house. Registered firearms are the first thing they confiscate.
Search the house? You think it'll come to that?
I think Harris is a desperate man with unlimited resources and a badge that lets him do whatever he wants. Yes, I think it could come to that.
Marcus looked around his home. The home where he'd raised his son, where he'd watched his wife die, where he'd built a life out of the ashes of his grief. And now it was a fortress, a hiding place, a target.
There's something else, Sarah said. Something you need to know.
What?
Your brother, Darnell Thompson.
Marcus went still.
What about him?
I ran his name through my memory, cross-referenced with my case files. She paused, and Marcus saw something like sympathy in her eyes.
He works for Harris, private security detail, off-the-books jobs. He's been on the payroll for about 18 months.
The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Darnell, his little brother, the kid he'd protected in high school, the man who'd stood next to him at Maya's funeral and cried harder than anyone, working for the man who was trying to kill them. That's not possible.
I'm sorry, Marcus. I have documentation, photos of him with Harris's crew, transaction records showing payments to an account in his name.
He wouldn't. He's not that kind of person.
People change. Money changes them faster.
Marcus sank onto the couch, head in his hands.
This couldn't be happening. His brother. His own blood.
Does he know? He asked. About you? About what Harris really does?
I don't know.
The foot soldiers usually don't know the full picture. They get paid to drive, to intimidate, to look the other way. They tell themselves it's just business. Sarah sat down across from him.
But Marcus, if Darnell is involved, even tangentially, he's a liability. If Harris pressures him, if he asks the right questions,
he wouldn't give me up.
Are you sure about that?
Marcus wanted to say yes, wanted to believe that blood meant something, that the bond between brothers couldn't be broken by money or fear or divided loyalties. But he thought about the phone call from Harris, about the implied threat to Jalen, about what desperate men were capable of when cornered. "No," he admitted, "I'm not sure." "Then we need to assume the worst. We need to assume that Darnell could lead Harris right to your door." "So what do we do?" "You talk to him. Find out what he knows, what he suspects. And then—" Sarah trailed off. "And then what?" "And then you decide whether your brother is an asset or a threat." The words hung in the air like poison. The front door opened. Marcus was on his feet instantly, body between Sarah and whoever was coming through. His hand reached for a gun that wasn't there. Jalen walked in, backpack dragging on the floor, face red from the cold. "Bus dropped me early. Something about a water main break at school?" The relief that flooded through Marcus was so intense he had to brace himself against the wall. "You okay, Dad? You look weird." "I'm fine, little man. Just surprised to see you." Jalen spotted Sarah and grinned. "Miss Sarah, you're still here. Dad, can she stay for dinner? She can tell me about being a police officer. Do you have a police car? Do you chase bad guys? Have you ever been in a car chase? Those look so cool in the movies." "Jalen," Marcus forced himself to smile, "why don't you go upstairs and start your homework? I'll call you when dinner's ready." "But I want to talk to Miss Sarah." "Later, son, I promise." The boy grumbled but obeyed, stomping up the stairs with all the dramatic flair of an 8-year-old who felt he was being treated unfairly. Sarah watched him go. "He's a good kid. He's everything." "I know." She turned back to Marcus. "That's why we have to be smart about this. That's why we can't afford mistakes." The afternoon passed in tense silence. Sarah made phone calls from Marcus's burner phone, a precaution he'd taken years ago, back when Maya was sick and bill collectors wouldn't stop calling. She spoke in codes and half-sentences, arranging a meeting with the journalist for the following morning. Marcus made dinner. Spaghetti, Jalen's favorite. The boy chattered through the meal, oblivious to the tension between the adults, telling Sarah about his school and his friends and the video game he wanted for his birthday. Sarah listened, asked questions, laughed at his jokes, and Marcus watched her with his son and felt something complicated stirring in his chest. After Jalen went to bed, Marcus sat on the front porch, watching the street. The temperature had dropped below freezing, but he barely felt it. Sarah came out and sat beside him. "You should sleep." "Can't." "I know the feeling." They sat in silence for a while. Two strangers bound together by circumstances neither of them had chosen. "If something happens to me," Sarah said quietly, "promise me you'll get that evidence to someone who can use it. The journalist, the FBI, anyone. Promise me James didn't die for nothing." "Nothing's going to happen to you." "Promise me anyway." Marcus looked at her, at the bruises and the bandages and the fierce determination in her eyes. "I promise." She nodded once. Then she stood and went back inside. Marcus stayed on the porch until midnight, watching the shadows, waiting for headlights that never came. Somewhere out there, Captain Raymond Harris was planning his next move. And Marcus Thompson was running out of time. The call came at 6 a.m. Marcus was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with cold coffee and a loaded shotgun hidden under the tablecloth. He hadn't slept more than 40 minutes all night. "It's me," Sarah said from the living room. "The journalist. She agreed to meet." "Where?" "Public place. Coffee shop on Michigan Avenue. 10 o'clock. Marcus walked into the living room where Sarah was already dressed, her wounds hidden under a borrowed hoodie, her gun tucked into the waistband of her jeans. "I'm coming with you." "No, you need to stay here. Get Jalen to school. Keep things normal." "Normal." Marcus almost laughed. Nothing about this is normal.
I know, but if we both disappear at the same time, if anyone's watching.
Someone is watching. Harris made that clear. Sarah's jaw tightened.
Then we need to be smarter than him. I go alone. I make the handoff. Once the journalist has the evidence, it's out of our hands. The story runs. Harris goes down. This ends.
And if it's a trap?
Then at least you and Jalen are safe.
Marcus stepped closer. I didn't pull you out of that ditch so you could walk into an ambush alone.
You pulled me out of that ditch because you're a good man. Don't let that get you killed.
Sarah reached out and touched his arm.
I've been doing this for 2 years. I know how to spot a setup. I know how to stay alive. Trust me.
He wanted to argue. Every instinct screamed at him to go with her, to watch her back, to make sure she came home. But she was right. Jalen needed him. If something went wrong, his son needed at least one parent to survive. You call me the second the meeting is done. I will. I mean it, Sarah. The second it's done. She met his eyes. I promise. Jalen came downstairs at 7:15, still half asleep, dragging his backpack behind him like a ball and chain. He perked up when he saw Sarah. Are you eating breakfast with us? Not today, sweetheart. I have to go somewhere. Will you be back for dinner? Sarah glanced at Marcus. Something passed between them. Hope, fear, uncertainty. I'll try my best. Marcus drove Jalen to the bus stop, watching the mirrors the entire time. No one followed. No suspicious vehicles. Just the usual morning traffic. Neighbors heading to work, kids walking to school. Normal. He hated that word now. When he got back to the house, Sarah was gone. She'd taken his burner phone and left a note on the kitchen counter. Thank you for everything. Whatever happens, you gave me hope when I had none. Sa. Marcus read the note 3 times. It sounded too much like a goodbye. The morning crawled by. Marcus went to the shop because he didn't know what else to do. He changed oil, replaced brake pads, smiled at customers, checked his phone every 30 seconds. No calls, no messages, nothing. At 11:47 a.m., his phone finally rang. It's done. Sarah's voice was steady, but he could hear the relief underneath. She has everything. The flash drive, copies of all my documentation. She's running the story tomorrow morning. Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Where are you now? Heading back. I should be there in 20 minutes. I'll meet you at the house. Marcus, she paused. Thank you for believing me, for helping me, for everything. Save it for when this is actually over. Fair enough. See you soon. The line went dead. Marcus closed the shop early and drove home, taking the long way, checking his mirrors obsessively. The streets looked clear. No tail, no surveillance. Maybe they'd actually pulled it off. He pulled into his driveway at 12:23 p.m. and killed the engine. The house looked exactly as he'd left it. Curtains drawn, doors closed, nothing out of place. Then he saw the front door. It was open, just a crack, just enough to notice. Marcus's blood went cold. He reached under his seat and pulled out the pistol he'd hidden there that morning. Safety off, chamber loaded, ready. He approached the house slowly, weapon raised, every sense on high alert. The door swung open at his touch, revealing the living room beyond. Empty. Jalen? He kept his voice low. Sarah? No response. He moved through the house, room by room, clearing corners the way he'd been trained, heart hammering against his ribs. Kitchen, empty. Bathroom, empty. Jalen's bedroom, empty. His bedroom. The door was closed. Marcus positioned himself to the side, reached out, and pushed it open. Darnell sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, looking like a man who'd just watched his entire world collapse. "Dee?" Marcus lowered the weapon, but didn't put it away. "What the hell are you doing here? How did you get in?" "You gave me a key 3 years ago. Remember? When Maya was sick, in case you needed help with Jalen. That doesn't explain why you're sitting in my bedroom in the middle of the day." Darnell looked up. His eyes were red, wet. He'd been crying. "I messed up, Marcus. I messed up so bad." Marcus felt the floor shift beneath his feet. "What did you do?" "I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know what they really were. They told me it was just security work, private clients, rich people who needed protection." Darnell's voice cracked. "I needed the money. After I lost my job, after Keisha left, I needed something, anything. And they paid well. They paid so well." "Who, Darnell? Who paid you?" "Harris. Captain Harris." The name came out like a confession. "I've been working for him for 18 months. Driving, running errands, keeping my mouth shut about things I didn't understand." Marcus's grip tightened on the pistol. "Do you understand now?" "They killed people, Marcus. I didn't want to believe it, but I saw things, heard things, and I kept telling myself it wasn't my business. I kept telling myself I was just the driver." "You came here to confess? Is that it? You want absolution?" "I came here to warn you." Darnell stood up, hands shaking. "They know. About the woman. About you hiding her. Harris knows everything." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. "How?" "I don't know. Someone talked. Someone always talks." Darnell stepped closer. "Marcus, you have to run. Take Jalen and get out of Detroit. Tonight. Right now. Don't pack. Don't say goodbye. Just go." "I can't run. Sarah." "The cop? She's the reason this is happening. She's the reason they're coming for you. She's trying to take Harris down. She's trying to do the right thing." "The right thing?" Darnell laughed bitterly. "There is no right thing. Not with these people. You can't beat them, Marcus. You can only survive them. And the only way to survive is to disappear." Marcus stared at his brother, at the fear in his eyes, the guilt, the desperate hope that Marcus would listen and run and save himself. And he thought about Maya, about what she would say if she could see him now. "I'm not running." "Marcus, I spent my whole life running, Dee. Running from responsibility. Running from pain. Running from anything that might cost me something." He shook his head. "Maya didn't run when the cancer came. She fought. Every single day she fought. Even when she knew she couldn't win, she fought. Because that's what you do when something matters. This isn't cancer. These are men with guns who will kill you and your son without blinking." "Then I'll fight them too." Darnell's face twisted with anguish. "You're going to die." "Maybe, but I'll die standing up. I'll die being someone my son can be proud of." Marcus met his brother's eyes. "You can still choose, Dee. You can still be on the right side of this." "There is no right side. There's just alive and dead." "That's not true, and I think you know it." The brothers stood in silence, the weight of choices made and unmade hanging between them like a physical presence. Finally, Darnell spoke. "They're coming tonight. Harris and his crew. 6 men, maybe more. They think you'll be easy. A mechanic and a wounded cop against trained killers." He paused. They don't know about your military service. They don't know what you can do. Is that supposed to help? It's information. Use it however you want. Darnell moved toward the door. I shouldn't have come here. If they find out I warned you, they won't find out from me. Darnell stopped, turned back. For a moment, he looked like the little brother Marcus remembered. Scared, uncertain, desperately wanting someone to tell him everything would be okay. I'm sorry, Marcus, for everything. I know, Dee. I know. His brother left through the back door, disappearing into the afternoon shadows like a ghost. Marcus stood alone in his bedroom, processing what he'd just learned. 6 men, tonight, coming to kill him, his son, and the woman he'd promised to protect. He had maybe 8 hours to prepare. The next 3 hours were a blur of activity. Marcus retrieved his hidden weapons, the shotgun from the garage, the rifle from the attic, the pistols from the basement. He kept them hidden from Jalen, locked away, remnants of a past he'd tried to leave behind. Now that past was the only thing that might keep them alive. He reinforced the doors, checked the windows, identified the best defensive positions in the house. His military training kicked in automatically, years of combat experience translating seamlessly to civilian terrain. Sarah arrived at 2:47 p.m., walking through the door with a smile that died the moment she saw his face. What happened? Harris knows. They're coming tonight. She didn't ask how he knew, didn't waste time with questions that didn't matter. How many? 6, maybe more. Weapons? Whatever they want. Harris controls the evidence room. Sarah processed this with the cold efficiency of someone who'd been preparing for this moment for 2 years. We need to get Jalen out. I know. Someone you trust. Someone off the grid. Someone Harris can't connect to you. Marcus thought about his options. Most of his friends were local, known, easy to find. Then he remembered. Tony Washington. We served together in Afghanistan. He lives about 20 minutes outside the city, off the main roads. Harris wouldn't know to look for him. Call him. Marcus dialed. Tony answered on the 3rd ring. Marcus? Brother, it's been too long. How you been? Tony, I need a favor. The biggest favor I've ever asked. Something in his tone must have communicated the seriousness, because Tony's voice went immediately serious. Name it. I need you to take Jalen, tonight. Keep him safe. Don't ask questions. Silence on the line. Then, how bad is it? Bad as it gets. When should I pick him up? I'll bring him to you. 5 o'clock. The place where we used to fish, remember? The spot with the old dock. I remember. I'll be there. Tony paused. You need backup? I still got my kit. No, I need you to protect my son. That's more important than anything. Understood. 5 o'clock. I'll be waiting. Marcus hung up and looked at Sarah. It's done. Good. Now we need to prepare for what's coming. Jalen's bus arrived at 3:30. The boy bounded off with his usual energy, backpack bouncing, completely unaware that his father's hands were shaking as he greeted him. Hey, Dad, we learned about volcanoes today. Did you know there's lava under the ground everywhere? Like everywhere. We could be standing on lava right now. That's something, little man. Can we have pizza for dinner? I've been thinking about pizza all day. With pepperoni. Extra pepperoni. We'll see, son. They walked back to the house together, Jalen chattering about school and friends and the girl who sat next to him, who always smelled like strawberries. Marcus listened and nodded and tried to memorize every word, every expression, every moment, just in case it was the last time. Inside, Sarah was waiting. Jalen's face lit up when he saw her. Miss Sarah, you came back!
I told you I'd try. Are you staying for dinner? Dad, can she stay for dinner? Can we have pizza? Please? Jalen. Marcus knelt down to his son's level.
I need to talk to you about something important. The boy's smile faded. He knew that tone, the serious dad tone. Am I in trouble? No, son, you're not in trouble. But I need you to do something for me. Something really important. Like a spy mission? Exactly like a spy mission. Marcus forced himself to smile. Uncle Tony is going to pick you up in a little while. You're going to stay with him for a few days. It's going to be like a sleepover, an adventure. Jalen's eyes narrowed with suspicion that exceeded his years. Why can't you come? I have some things I need to take care of here. Grown-up things. What kind of things? The kind I can't explain right now, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Jalen looked at his father, then at Sarah, then back at his father. Is it about Miss Sarah? Is someone trying to hurt her? Marcus felt his throat tighten. His son was too smart for his own good. Yes, bad people are trying to hurt her, and I need to make sure she stays safe. So you're going to protect her? Like a superhero? Something like that. Jalen was quiet for a long moment. Then he stepped forward and hugged his father. Tight, fierce, the hug of a child who understood more than he should have to. Be careful, Daddy. I don't want you to die like Mama. Marcus held his son and let the tears fall silently where Jalen couldn't see them. I'll be careful, little man. I promise. You have to come back. You have to. I will. I promise. I will. At 4:45, Marcus drove Jalen to the meeting spot. The old fishing dock sat at the edge of a lake nobody visited anymore, surrounded by trees and accessible only by dirt roads that didn't appear on any map. Tony was already there, his pickup truck hidden behind a cluster of pines. He stepped out when Marcus arrived. Tall, broad, with the same easy confidence he'd had in Afghanistan. Hey there, little soldier. Tony knelt down to greet Jalen. Your dad tells me we're going on an adventure. Are there video games at your house? Got a whole collection. Some of them are pretty old, but they still work. Jalen considered this. Okay, but I want pizza. I think we can arrange that. Marcus pulled Tony aside while Jalen explored the truck's interior. Thank you for this, Tony. I owe you everything. You owe me nothing. You saved my life twice in Kandahar. This doesn't even begin to settle the score. If something happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you. If something happens, Marcus repeated firmly, take care of my son. Raise him right. Tell him his father loved him more than anything in this world. Tony's jaw tightened. He gripped Marcus's shoulder hard. You're coming back. You hear me? You're coming back, and you're going to tell him yourself. I'm going to try. Don't try. Do it. That's an order. Marcus almost smiled. Since when do you outrank me? Since right now. Come back alive, soldier. That's not a request. They embraced. Brief, hard. The way men do when words aren't enough. Marcus walked back to the truck where Jalen was waiting. He hugged his son one more time, breathing in the smell of his hair, feeling the small arms wrapped around his neck. I love you, Jalen. I love you too, Daddy. Be good for Uncle Tony. I will. And remember, no matter what happens, I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you. You're the best thing I ever did. Jalen pulled back and looked at his father with eyes that seemed older than 8 years. Come back to me, Daddy. Promise. I promise, little man. I promise. He watched Tony's truck disappear down the dirt road, carrying his son to safety.
Then he got back in his own truck and drove home to face whatever was coming. Sarah was waiting on the porch when he returned. "Is he safe?" "As safe as I can make him." "Good. Then let's get ready."
The next 2 hours were spent in grim preparation. They moved furniture to create cover positions. They placed weapons at strategic points throughout the house. They discussed contingencies, fallback positions, signals. At 8 p.m., Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Last chance, Mr. Thompson. Give us the woman. Walk away with your life." He showed it to Sarah. "What do you want to do?" she asked. Marcus typed his response with steady fingers. "Come and get her." He hit send. Sarah watched him with something like admiration in her eyes. "You know they'll kill us both now." "They were always going to try. At least this way, we choose how we fight." At 9:17 p.m., the power went out. Marcus moved immediately to his position near the living room window, rifle in hand, eyes adjusting to the darkness. Sarah took the kitchen, covering the back entrance, her pistol steady despite her injuries. Headlights appeared at the end of the street. 3 vehicles, moving slowly. No sirens, no lights. They were here. Marcus counted the figures emerging from the cars. 6 men, just like Darnell said. Armed. Moving with the coordinated precision of people who'd done this before. 2 went around back. 4 approached the front. 4 in front, 2 in back, Marcus called softly to Sarah. "Copy. I've got the rear." The first shot shattered the living room window. Marcus dropped to the floor as glass exploded around him. More shots followed. Rapid, suppressed, punching through the walls like paper. They weren't trying to breach. They were softening the target. He waited for a pause in the gunfire. Then he rose, sighted through the broken window, and squeezed the trigger. 1 man went down, clutching his shoulder, screaming. Return fire drove Marcus back into cover. Bullets tore through the couch, the walls, the family photos he'd hung with such care after Maya died. In the kitchen, he heard Sarah's pistol bark twice, a grunt of pain. Then silence. "2 down back here," she called. "I'm hit." "How bad?" "I'll live. Focus on your sector." Marcus moved to a new position, staying low, using the furniture for cover. The front door exploded inward, breaching charge, and 2 figures rushed through, weapons up, sweeping the room. Marcus took the first one with a shot to the chest. The second turned toward him, too fast, finger on the trigger. And a shot from the kitchen caught him in the side of the head. Sarah stood in the doorway, bleeding from her arm, pistol smoking. "You're welcome." "Kitchen's compromised. Fall back to the hallway." They moved together, covering each other. 2 wounded warriors fighting for survival in a house that used to mean home. The last attacker came through the back door, moving fast, staying low. Marcus heard him before he saw him. Footsteps on the kitchen tile, and spun to engage. Too slow. The man had him dead to rights, rifle leveled at Marcus's chest, finger tightening on the trigger. A shot rang out. The man crumpled. Behind him, framed in the shattered doorway, stood Darnell. His hand shook as he lowered the gun he'd just fired. "I told you," he said, voice breaking. "I told you there was no right side." Shut up. Just shut up." Darnell stepped over the body he'd created, tears streaming down his face. "I spent 18 months telling myself I wasn't one of them, that I was just the driver, just the errand boy, that what they did wasn't my fault." He looked at his brother with eyes full of agony. "But it was. It was all my fault. Every person they hurt, every life they destroyed. I helped them.
I was part of it. You just saved my life. That doesn't make up for anything. It's a start. Outside, the sound of approaching sirens. Someone had called the cops. Real cops this time. The neighbors, probably, awakened by the gunfire.
"You need to go," Sarah said to Darnell. "If they find you here, I'm not running anymore." Darnell sat down heavily on the floor, dropping his gun beside him. "I'm done running. Whatever happens now, I'm going to face it." Marcus looked at his brother. Broken. Guilty. Finally ready to be the man he should have been all along. Then headlights flooded through the shattered windows. A single vehicle, different from the others. A figure emerged. Captain Raymond Harris walked through the ruined front door like he owned the place. "Well, well," he said, surveying the carnage. "Looks like you've been busy, Mr. Thompson." Marcus raised his rifle. Harris smiled. "Go ahead. Shoot a decorated police captain in front of witnesses. See how that works out for you." The sirens were closer now, less than a minute away. "It's over, Harris," Sarah said. "The evidence is out. The story runs tomorrow morning. Your entire operation is finished." Harris's smile didn't waver. "Maybe, but you won't be alive to see it." He raised his weapon. Marcus moved faster, but not fast enough. The shot that rang out didn't come from Harris's gun or Marcus's rifle. It came from behind Harris. The captain staggered forward, a red bloom spreading across his back. He turned, disbelief written across his face, and saw Darnell standing behind him, gun raised, hands finally steady. "That's for everyone you killed," Darnell said. "That's for everything you made me become." Harris fell. The sirens arrived, and in the ruins of his home, surrounded by bodies and broken glass and the wreckage of everything he'd built, Marcus Thompson stood victorious, wounded, exhausted, but alive. The first police car arrived 47 seconds after Harris fell. Marcus stood in the middle of his destroyed living room, rifle still in his hands, blood on his shirt that wasn't entirely his own. Sarah leaned against the wall behind him, clutching her wounded arm. Darnell sat on the floor where he'd dropped, staring at the body of the man he'd just killed. "Put down the weapon, now!" Officers flooded through the shattered doorway, guns drawn, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Marcus didn't move. Couldn't move. His body had locked up, caught between combat mode and the sudden realization that it was over. "Marcus," Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. "Put it down, slowly." He lowered the rifle to the floor and raised his hands. Two officers rushed forward and forced him to his knees, cuffing his wrists behind his back. "That's Captain Harris," one of them said, kneeling beside the body. "Holy shit, that's Captain Harris." "He's still breathing," another officer called out. "Get the medics in here, now!" Harris was alive. The bullet had hit him in the lower back, missing his spine by inches. He was unconscious, bleeding heavily, but breathing. Marcus didn't know whether to feel relieved or disappointed. "I'm Detective Sarah Mitchell," Sarah said, her voice cutting through the confusion. "Badge number 4471. I've been working undercover for 2 years, investigating Captain Harris for corruption, drug trafficking, and murder. Everything that happened here tonight was in self-defense. Harris and his men attacked this house with intent to kill." The officer stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "Detective Mitchell is dead," one of them said. "She was killed in a car accident 3 days ago. Harris announced it himself." "Well, clearly I'm not dead." Sarah stepped forward, her good hand reaching for her badge. "Check my credentials. Call FBI Special Agent Robert Chen in the Detroit field office. He'll confirm everything." "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back." "Call him, now, before Harris's people have a chance to spin this." The officer hesitated. Then he pulled out his phone. The next 2 hours were a blur of flashing lights, yellow tape, and questions Marcus couldn't answer. They separated him from Sarah and Darnell, put him in the back of a patrol car, and drove him to the station without explanation. He sat in an interrogation room for what felt like forever. No lawyer, no phone call, just a metal table and four walls that seemed to get smaller every time he looked at them. Finally, the door opened. A man in a dark suit walked in, carrying a folder thick enough to be a small novel. He was maybe 50, gray at the temples, with the kind of tired eyes that came from seeing too much and believing too little. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Special Agent Robert Chen, FBI. I apologize for the delay. Things have been complicated." "Where's my son?" "Safe. We contacted your friend Tony Washington. Jalen is fine. Worried about you, but fine." Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. "When can I see him?" "Soon. First, we need to talk about what happened tonight." Chen sat down across from him and opened the folder. "You've had quite a night, Mr. Thompson. 5 dead, 2 wounded, including a decorated police captain. Your house looks like a war zone." "They came to kill us. We defended ourselves." "I believe you. Detective Mitchell has corroborated everything. The evidence she gathered over the past 2 years is extensive. Captain Harris and at least 15 other officers are looking at multiple life sentences." Chen paused. "But there are people who want to make you the villain in this story. People who want to protect the status quo." "I'm not a villain. I'm a mechanic." "You're a Marine who killed 5 men in one night. The press is going to have a field day." Marcus leaned forward. "I don't care about the press. I care about my son. I care about keeping my family safe. Everything I did tonight, I did because men with badges came to my house to murder an innocent woman." "I know, and off the record, what you did was heroic. But on the record, there are procedures, investigations, paperwork that could bury you if the wrong people get involved." "So what happens now?" Chen was quiet for a moment. Then he closed the folder and looked Marcus in the eye. "What happens now is that you tell me everything. Every detail. From the moment you found Detective Mitchell in that ditch to the moment Harris went down. And then I'm going to make sure that the right story gets told. The true story." Marcus talked. He talked for 3 hours straight, laying out every moment of the past 4 days with the precision of a military debriefing. Chen listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes, his expression unreadable. When Marcus finished, the agent sat back in his chair. "You know, in 20 years with the Bureau, I've seen a lot of cases. A lot of people making choices under pressure. Some of them good, most of them bad." He shook his head slowly. "What you did, taking in a stranger, protecting her, standing against corrupt cops who had every advantage, that takes a kind of courage most people only dream about." "I didn't feel courageous. I felt terrified." "That's what real courage is, Mr. Thompson. Being terrified and doing the right thing anyway." Chen stood up. "You're free to go. No charges. Your actions have been ruled justified self-defense under the circumstances." "Just like that?" "Just like that. Detective Mitchell's evidence is overwhelming. The department is scrambling to distance itself from Harris and his people. Frankly, they need you to be a hero more than they need you to be a scapegoat." Marcus rose slowly, his body aching from wounds he hadn't noticed until now. "What about Darnell? My brother?" Chen's expression shifted. "That's more complicated. He was on Harris's payroll for 18 months. We have records, photographs. He's implicated in activities that could put him away for a long time. He saved my life tonight. He shot Harris to protect me." "I know, and that's going to factor into any decision we make." Chen paused. "Your brother has agreed to cooperate fully with our investigation. Names, dates, operations, everything he knows about Harris's network. In exchange, we're recommending a significantly reduced sentence, maybe even witness protection, depending on how valuable his information turns out to be. He's not a bad man. He made bad choices, but he's not bad. The law doesn't always distinguish between bad men and men who make bad choices, Mr. Thompson. But I'll do what I can. They shook hands at the door of the interrogation room. One more thing, Chen said. There's someone waiting for you in the lobby. She's been there all night. Marcus walked through the station in a daze, past officers who stared and whispered, past desks cluttered with paperwork related to the night's events. He pushed through the lobby doors and stopped. Sarah sat on a bench near the entrance, her arm in a sling, her face pale but alert. She stood when she saw him. They let you go. Justified self-defense. Apparently, I'm a hero. You are a hero. I don't feel like one. Heroes never do. They stood there, two people who'd been through hell together, not quite sure what came next. The sun was rising outside, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A new day, a new beginning. What happens to you now? Marcus asked. Debriefings, testimony, probably months of paperwork. Sarah shrugged with her good shoulder. The story breaks this morning. By noon, Harris will be the most hated man in Detroit. By this time next week, half the department will be under investigation. And after that? I don't know. I've spent 2 years living this case. I don't know who I am without it. Marcus understood that feeling better than he could express. For 3 years, he'd been defined by Maya's death, by grief, by the endless struggle to keep going. He didn't know who he was without it either. Jalen's been asking about you, he said. Sarah's expression softened. He's a good kid. He wants to know if you're staying for dinner. I don't have anywhere to be. Then stay. Tony brought Jalen home that afternoon. The boy burst out of the truck before it fully stopped, sprinting across the yard and launching himself at Marcus with enough force to nearly knock them both over. Daddy, Daddy, you came back! You promised and you came back! Marcus held his son and let the tears come. He didn't care who was watching. Didn't care about the neighbors gathering on their porches or the news vans that had started circling the block. His son was in his arms. Nothing else mattered. I told you, little man. I told you I'd come back. Uncle Tony let me have ice cream for breakfast. Don't be mad. I'm not mad. I'm just happy to see you. Jalen pulled back and looked at his father's face, at the cuts and bruises that had bloomed overnight. Did you fight the bad guys? Yeah, son. I fought the bad guys. Did you win? Marcus thought about the bodies, the blood, the look in Harris's eyes when Darnell's bullet hit him. He thought about all the things his son didn't need to know and might never understand. We won, little man. The good guys won. Tony approached slowly, giving them space, his eyes taking in the destruction visible through the shattered windows of the house. Looks like you had quite a night. That's one way to put it. Place is going to need some work. I know. Tony clapped him on the shoulder. Good thing you know a few guys who owe you favors. We'll have this fixed up in no time. Tony, don't. You'd do the same for me. He glanced toward the house, where Sarah had appeared in the doorway. She staying? I think so. Good. You could use someone to watch your back. Someone who isn't 8 years old. Marcus almost smiled. Thanks, brother. Anytime. The next few days were chaos. The story broke on Thursday morning, just as Sarah had predicted. By Thursday afternoon, it was the only thing anyone in Detroit was talking about. Captain Raymond Harris, hero cop, community leader, mayoral hopeful, exposed as the head of a massive corruption ring that had been poisoning the city for over a decade.
The evidence was irrefutable. Recordings, bank statements, witness testimony. By the end of the week, 15 officers had been arrested. 3 more had fled the state. 2 had taken their own lives rather than face justice. Harris himself lay in a hospital bed under armed guard, facing charges that would keep him in prison until he died. The bullet from Darnell's gun had severed his spinal cord. He would never walk again. Some called it karma. Others called it justice. Marcus didn't call it anything.
He was too busy trying to put his life back together. The media wanted interviews, book deals, movie rights. They camped outside his shop and followed Jalen's school bus and knocked on his door at all hours. Marcus said no to all of it. "You're turning down a lot of money," Sarah told him one evening, watching him decline yet another call from a New York publisher. "I didn't do this for money." "You could secure Jalen's future, college, whatever he wants." "Jalen's future is my responsibility. I'll secure it the way I've always secured it. By working. By being his father. Not by turning the worst night of my life into entertainment." Sarah studied him with that assessing gaze he'd come to recognize. "You really are something else, Marcus Thompson." "I'm a mechanic. That's all I've ever been." "No, you're much more than that. You just don't see it yet." The house was livable again by the following week. Tony had been true to his word. He showed up with a crew of guys Marcus recognized from his Marine days, and they worked around the clock to patch the bullet holes, replace the windows, fix the doors. "You know," Tony said, helping Marcus hang a new front door, "when I said we should keep in touch after Afghanistan, this isn't exactly what I had in mind. Life's full of surprises. That's one word for it." Tony stepped back to examine his work. "So what's the deal with the lady cop?" "Sarah?" "No, the other lady cop living in your house." Tony rolled his eyes. "Yes, Sarah. You two seem close." "She needed somewhere to stay while things settled down. Her apartment was compromised during the undercover operation." "Uh-huh. It's not like that." "Didn't say it was." Tony grinned. "But the way she looks at you, the way you look at her, that's not just gratitude, brother." Marcus didn't respond. He'd been trying not to think about it, about the way Sarah fit into his home, into his life, into the empty spaces Maya had left behind. It felt like a betrayal somehow, like moving on meant leaving Maya behind. But Maya was gone. 3 years gone. And she would never want him to be alone. That night, after Jalen was asleep, Marcus found Sarah on the back porch, staring at the sky. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Never could. Not since James." He sat down beside her, close enough to feel her warmth, but not quite touching. "Tell me about him. The real him. Not the detective, not the case. The man." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "He laughed at his own jokes. Terrible jokes, the kind that make you groan. But he laughed so hard at them that you couldn't help laughing too." A small smile crossed her face. "He burned everything he tried to cook. Everything. I once watched him ruin boiling water. I still don't know how that's possible." "Sounds like a good man." He was. He was the best man I ever knew." She paused. "Until I met you." Marcus turned to look at her. "Sarah, I'm not saying this to complicate things. I know you loved your wife. I know you're still grieving. I'm still grieving too." She met his eyes. "But I've spent 2 years surrounded by liars and criminals, pretending to be someone I'm not. And in 4 days, you showed me more kindness, more courage, more genuine goodness than I'd seen in all that time." "I just did what anyone would do." "No, you didn't. Most people would have kept driving. Most people would have called 911 and walked away. You didn't." She reached out and took his hand. "You saved my life, Marcus. But more than that, you reminded me that there are still good people in the world. People worth fighting for." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. The walls he'd built around his heart since Maya died, the protective barriers that kept everyone at a distance, they were crumbling. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "I haven't since Maya. I don't know who I am anymore. Neither do I. Maybe we can figure it out together." He looked at their hands, intertwined on the porch step. Her fingers were smaller than his, rougher than he expected, marked with calluses from years of weapons training. "Jalen asked me if you were going to be his new mom." Sarah laughed softly. "What did you tell him?" "I told him to finish his vegetables." Classic deflection. "I learned from the best." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. For the first time in years, Marcus felt something other than grief and exhaustion. He felt hope. 2 weeks later, Marcus visited Darnell at the federal detention facility, where he was being held pending his testimony. The brothers sat across from each other in a sterile visiting room, separated by a table bolted to the floor. Darnell looked older than his 34 years, his face gaunt, his eyes carrying a weight that hadn't been there before. "How you holding up, D?" "I'm alive. That's more than I deserve." "Don't say that." "It's true. I helped them, Marcus. Maybe I didn't pull triggers or make deals, but I drove the cars. I watched the doors. I pretended not to see what was right in front of me." His voice cracked. "People died because of Harris, and I made it possible." Marcus leaned forward. "You also stopped him. When it mattered most, you made a choice. You chose to be the man I always knew you could be." "One good choice doesn't erase 100 bad ones." "No, but it's a start, and you've got the rest of your life to keep making good choices." Darnell shook his head. "The rest of my life might be in prison." "Agent Chen says you're looking at 18 months, maybe less with good behavior. Witness protection after that. A new name, a fresh start." Marcus reached across the table and gripped his brother's arm. "You're going to get through this. And when you come out, I'll be there. Jalen will be there. We're family, D. That doesn't change." Tears spilled down Darnell's cheeks. "I don't deserve a brother like you." "Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." They talked for another hour, about childhood memories, about their parents, about the paths that had led them to this moment. When the guard finally came to end the visit, Darnell pulled Marcus into a hug. "Thank you," he whispered, "for not giving up on me." Never. Not ever. The trial started in April. Marcus testified for 2 days, walking through every detail of that night with the precision that Agent Chen had demanded. The defense lawyers tried to paint him as a vigilante, a violent man who'd taken the law into his own hands. But the evidence was too overwhelming, the witnesses too credible. Sarah testified for 3 days. She laid out 2 years of work, 2 years of sacrifice, 2 years of watching and waiting and gathering proof. She named names. She presented documents. She connected dots that the defense couldn't explain away. When she described James Walker's murder, the way Harris had ordered it, the way she'd held her fiancé as he bled out on a Detroit street, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. Captain Raymond Harris was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms to be served in a federal penitentiary far from Detroit. He would never see freedom again. Marcus watched the verdict come in from the gallery, Sarah beside him, her hand in his. When the judge read the sentence, she didn't cry. She just closed her eyes and breathed, releasing 2 years of pain and anger and grief in a single exhale. "It's over," she whispered. "Yeah, it's over." Outside the courthouse, the press was waiting. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Marcus and Sarah pushed through the crowd, ignoring the noise, focused only on reaching the car where Tony was waiting with Jalen. "Daddy!" The boy pressed his face against the window, grinning. "Did the bad man go to jail?" "He did, little man. He's going away for a very long time." "Good. He was mean. I didn't like him." "Nobody liked him, son. That's why he's going to jail." They drove home through streets that felt different somehow. Lighter, like a shadow had lifted from the city, leaving something cleaner in its wake. That night, Marcus stood in his living room, rebuilt now, stronger than before, and looked at the photo of Maya on the mantel. She smiled back at him, frozen in time, forever young. "I think I found someone," he said quietly. "Someone good. Someone who makes me want to be better." He paused. "I hope that's okay. I hope you understand." The photo didn't answer. It never did. But Marcus felt something in his chest loosen, like a knot finally coming undone. "I'll always love you," he whispered. "But I think it's time to start living again." Sarah found him there a few minutes later. She didn't ask what he was doing. Didn't need to. She just stood beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "You okay?" "Getting there. That's all any of us can do." He turned to look at her, at this woman who'd crashed into his life and turned everything upside down. She was still healing, still carrying scars that would never fully fade. But she was here, alive, fighting, just like him. "Stay," he said. "What?" "Stay. Not just for now. Not just until you find somewhere else. Stay. Be part of this family." Sarah's eyes widened. "Marcus." "I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. But I've learned something these past few weeks. Life is short. It can end in an instant, and I don't want to waste another second being afraid of what might happen." "What about Jalen?" "Jalen adores you. He's been asking when you're going to move into the guest room permanently." "That's because I let him stay up late and watch cartoons." "That's bribery." "It's strategy." Sarah smiled, but there were tears in her eyes. "Are you sure about this? Really sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." She stepped closer, close enough to feel her breath, close enough to see the way her eyes reflected the lamplight. "Then yes, I'll stay." He kissed her, and for the first time in 3 years, Marcus Thompson felt whole again. 6 months passed like water through open fingers. Marcus stood at the window of his shop, watching the morning traffic crawl by, coffee growing cold in his hand. Thompson's auto repair had doubled in size since the trial. People came from all over Detroit now, not just for the quality work, but because they wanted to shake the hand of the man who'd helped bring down the most corrupt cop in the city's history. He hated it. "You're brooding again." Sarah's voice came from behind him. She'd developed a habit of showing up unannounced, slipping through doors without a sound, a remnant of her undercover days that she couldn't quite shake. "I'm thinking." "Same thing with you." She handed him a fresh cup of coffee and took the cold one from his hand. "What's on your mind?" "The mayor wants to give me a medal." "I heard. That's a good thing, isn't it?" Marcus shook his head. "I didn't do what I did for medals. I didn't do it for recognition or newspaper articles or any of this." He gestured at the stack of interview requests piling up on his desk. "I did it because it was right. That should be enough." "It is enough. But that doesn't mean you can't let people say thank you." "I don't need their thanks. Maybe they need to give it." Sarah moved to stand beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "This city has been through hell, Marcus. Corruption, betrayal, watching the people who were supposed to protect them turn out to be monsters. They need to believe in something good. They need a hero." "I'm not a hero." You keep saying that, and you keep being wrong. She turned to face him. You saved my life. You saved Jalen's life. You stood up when everyone else would have looked away. That's not heroism to you? It's just being a decent human being. In this world, that's the same thing. Marcus didn't have an answer for that. He just stood there, watching the cars go by, thinking about all the ways his life had changed since that frozen night 6 months ago. The shop door opened, and Jalen burst through like a small hurricane, backpack flying, shoes untied, grin splitting his face. "Dad! Dad!"
Guess what? What, little man? I got an A on my history test, the one about the Civil War. Mrs. Patterson said it was the best essay she'd ever read from a 3rd grader.
That's amazing, son. I'm proud of you.
And guess what else?
There's more?
Tommy Richardson said his dad said you were a hero. And I said, duh, everyone knows that. And he said, no, really, though. And I said, my dad fought like 100 bad guys all by himself. And he said, that's not possible. And I said, it is too possible because my dad was a Marine.
Marcus knelt down to his son's level. First of all, it wasn't 100 bad guys. It was 6. Second, I had a lot of help. Miss Sarah was there. Uncle Darnell was there.
Uncle Darnell shot the really bad guy, right? The one with the mean face?
That's right.
Is Uncle Darnell still in jail?
Marcus felt his chest tighten. No, son. Uncle Darnell got out last month. Remember, we talked about this.
He made some mistakes, but he's trying to be better now. Can we go see him?
Actually, Marcus glanced at Sarah. He's coming to dinner tonight. Jalen's eyes went wide.
Really? Tonight? Can we have pizza? Uncle Darnell loves pizza. Remember that time he ate a whole pizza by himself and then threw up in the backyard?
I remember.
That was so gross, but also kind of cool.
Go wash your hands and start your homework. We'll talk about pizza later. The boy raced upstairs, somehow making enough noise for 3 children. Marcus watched him go, that familiar ache of love and worry settling in his chest. He's handling everything remarkably well, Sarah said. Kids are resilient, more resilient than we give them credit for. He has a good father. He has a father who's trying. That's not the same thing. Sarah took his hand. It's exactly the same thing. Darnell arrived at 6 o'clock, a pizza box in one hand and a bottle of sparkling cider in the other. Didn't know what to bring, he said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. Figured you can't go wrong with pizza. Come in, Dee. You're family. You don't need to bring anything. The brothers embraced, brief, tight, carrying the weight of everything they'd been through and everything that still lay ahead. Darnell had lost weight in detention. His face was thinner, older, marked by experiences Marcus could only imagine. But his eyes were clear. That was what mattered.
Uncle Darnell!
Jalen came flying down the stairs and launched himself at his uncle with enough force to nearly topple them both.
You're here! Dad said you were coming, but I didn't believe him because sometimes he says things and then they don't happen, like that time he said we'd go to Cedar Point, but then we didn't go because of the car thing.
Good to see you too, little man. Darnell's voice was thick with emotion. You got big.
I grew 2 inches. Mrs. Patterson measured us for the height chart.
I'm the 3rd tallest in my class now. Marcus Richardson is still taller, but he's basically a giant, so that doesn't count. Sounds like you've been busy.
I have. I got an A on my history test today, and I can do 37 jumping jacks without stopping.
And I learned all the states in alphabetical order. Want to hear? Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California. Maybe later, son. Marcus guided Jalen toward the kitchen. Let Uncle Darnell catch his breath first. They ate dinner around the kitchen table, the same table where Marcus and Sarah had planned their defense just months earlier. The bullet holes in the wall had been patched and painted, but Marcus still knew exactly where they were.
Some scars you couldn't see. Didn't mean they weren't there. "So what's next for you, Dee?" Marcus asked between bites of pizza. Darnell shrugged. "Agent Chen set me up with a job. Construction crew in Ohio. Nothing fancy, but it's honest work." "Ohio?" "Part of the arrangement.
New city, new name, new start." He paused. "I'm leaving tomorrow." Jalen's fork clattered against his plate. "Tomorrow? But you just got here." "I know, buddy. I'm sorry."
"Can't you stay? Dad, can't he stay?"
Marcus looked at his brother, at the mixture of guilt and resolve on his face. "Uncle Darnell needs to build a new life for himself, son. Sometimes that means going somewhere new."
"But he's family. Family sticks together."
Family also supports each other, even when it's hard. Marcus reached over and squeezed Jalen's shoulder. "Uncle Darnell isn't leaving because he wants to leave us. He's leaving because he needs to become the person he wants to be. And we're going to support that, right?" Jalen's lower lip trembled, but he nodded.
"Can we visit him?"
"Of course."
"Will he come back for Christmas?"
Darnell's voice caught. "I'll try, little man. I promise I'll try." After dinner, Darnell and Marcus sat on the back porch, while Sarah helped Jalen with his homework inside. The evening air was warm, thick with the smell of summer approaching, cicadas starting their nightly chorus. "You've got a good thing here, Marcus." Darnell gestured at the house, at the light spilling from the windows, at the shadows of Sarah and Jalen visible through the curtains. "Don't screw it up." "I'll do my best." "She loves you, Sarah. I can see it in the way she looks at you." "I know." "Do you love her?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. It was a question he'd been asking himself for months, one he'd been afraid to answer. "Yeah, I do." "What about Maya?" "Maya's gone. She's been gone for 3 years." Marcus felt the old grief stir, familiar but no longer overwhelming. "I'll always love her. She was the mother of my son. She was my first love. But she'd want me to be happy. She'd want Jalen to have a mother again." "Have you talked to Sarah about it? About making it official?" "Not yet." "What are you waiting for?" "I don't know. The right moment. A sign." Darnell laughed softly. "Brother, you literally fought off 6 armed men to protect this woman. You took a bullet for her. You put your life and your son's life on the line for a stranger. If that's not a sign, I don't know what is." "Since when do you give relationship advice?" "Since I spent 6 months in a cell with nothing to do but think about all the ways I screwed up my own life." Darnell turned to face him. "I had someone once. Before all this. Her name was Keisha. She was smart, beautiful, had this laugh that could light up a room. And I let her go. I let work and money and stupid pride get in the way of what really mattered." "What happened to her?" "She married someone else. Has 2 kids now, living in Atlanta somewhere." He shook his head. "I check her Facebook sometimes. She looks happy." "I'm sorry, Dee." "Don't be sorry. Learn from it. Don't make the same mistakes I did." Darnell gripped Marcus's shoulder. "You've got something real with Sarah, something worth keeping. Don't let it slip away because you're afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of being happy, of moving on, of letting yourself love someone again and risking the pain of losing them." Marcus stared at his brother. When had Darnell gotten so wise? "6 months in a cell changes a man," Darnell said, as if reading his thoughts. "You've got a lot of time to think about what matters. And what matters is family. Love. The people who stand by you when everything falls apart. You stood by me when Harris came. You could have walked away. You could have stayed loyal to him. But you chose us. I chose you. I'll always choose you." Darnell's voice cracked.
You're my brother, Marcus. You're the only family I've got left. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that." The brothers sat in silence for a while, watching the stars come out, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling into evening. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. A car engine started. Life went on, the way it always did. "Promise me something," Darnell said finally. "Anything. Promise me you'll be happy, whatever that looks like, whether it's with Sarah or someone else, whether you stay here or move somewhere new. Just be happy. For me, for Jalen, for Maya. I promise. And promise me you'll let Jalen stay up late on Christmas Eve if I manage to visit." Marcus laughed, a real laugh, the kind he hadn't felt in a long time. "I promise." Darnell left the next morning. Marcus drove him to the bus station, both of them quiet, words feeling inadequate for the moment. At the terminal, they embraced one more time, holding on longer than either would admit. "I'll call when I get there," Darnell said. "You better. Tell Jalen I love him. He knows. Tell Sarah to take care of you. She already does." Darnell stepped back, tears streaming openly down his face now. "I'm going to be better, Marcus. I'm going to make you proud." "I'm already proud, Dee. I've always been proud." The bus pulled away at 8:47 a.m., carrying Darnell toward a new life in a new city under a new name. Marcus watched until it disappeared around the corner, then stood there for a few more minutes, feeling the weight of goodbye settle into his bones. But it wasn't a sad weight. Not really. It was the weight of hope, of second chances, of family bonds that couldn't be broken by distance or time or the worst mistakes a person could make. Darnell was going to be okay. Marcus believed that now. They were all going to be okay. 3 months later, on a perfect September evening, Marcus asked Sarah to marry him. He didn't plan it, didn't buy a ring in advance or rehearse a speech or set up some elaborate surprise. He just looked at her across the dinner table, Jalen chattering between them about his new teacher and his new best friend and the dog he desperately wanted and knew. This was his family. This was his future. This was everything he'd thought he'd lost when Maya died, rebuilt from the ashes of grief and violence and impossible choices. "Marry me," he said. Sarah stopped mid-bite, fork suspended in the air. Jalen went silent for the first time in recorded history. "What?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "Marry me. Be my wife. Be Jalen's mother. Be part of this family officially, permanently, forever." "Marcus, we haven't even talked about—" "I know. And I'm sorry I didn't do this properly, with a ring and flowers and all that stuff. But I've learned something these past few months. Life doesn't wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is the one you choose to make perfect." He stood up, walked around the table, and knelt beside her chair. "Sarah Mitchell, you crashed into my life. Literally crashed, and turned everything upside down. You made me fight when I wanted to hide. You made me brave when I wanted to run. You showed my son that heroes are real, and that love can find you when you least expect it." His voice caught, but he pushed through. "I can't promise you an easy life. I can't promise there won't be hard times ahead. But I can promise that I will love you every single day for as long as I live. I can promise that I will stand beside you through whatever comes. And I can promise that you will never, never have to face anything alone again." Tears were streaming down Sarah's face now. "Say yes," Jalen shouted. "Say yes, Miss Sarah, please. I want you to be my mom." Sarah laughed through her tears,
that beautiful broken sound that Marcus had come to love.
Yes, she said. Yes, 1,000 times yes.
Marcus kissed her, while Jalen cheered and clapped, and accidentally knocked over his glass of milk in his excitement. They were engaged. They were a family. They were home. The wedding was small. They held it in the backyard of the house that had nearly become their grave, a deliberate choice, a reclaiming of space that had been violated by violence. Tony stood as Marcus's best man, a fellow detective from Sarah's unit, one of the few who'd passed the internal investigation, stood as her maid of honor. Jalen was the ring bearer. He took the job extremely seriously, practicing his walk for weeks beforehand, terrified of dropping the rings. He didn't drop them. Darnell came back for the ceremony, standing in the crowd with tears on his face, watching his brother pledge his life to the woman who'd changed everything. Agent Chen came too, shaking Marcus's hand and congratulating him. "You know," Chen said, "I've been doing this job for a long time. I've seen a lot of people broken by the things they've been through, but I've never seen anyone rebuild the way you have. I had help. You had courage. The help just gave it somewhere to go." After the ceremony, after the cake and the dancing and the toasts, Marcus found himself standing alone in the backyard, looking at the spot where Harris had fallen. Sarah appeared beside him. "Having second thoughts?" "No, never." He turned to face her. "I'm thinking about how close we came, how easily this could have ended differently. But it didn't. But it didn't." He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her, feeling the solid reality of her against his chest. "I love you, Sarah Thompson." "I love you too, Marcus Thompson. We're going to be okay, aren't we? We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be happy." Behind them, Jalen was teaching Tony's kids an elaborate dance move he'd learned from a video game. Darnell was helping stack plates, chatting with a neighbor about construction work. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Life. Real life. The kind Marcus had thought was lost to him forever. "Come on," Sarah said, taking his hand. "Our son is about to teach a bunch of kids how to do the floss, and I want to watch you try to learn it too." "I'm not doing the floss." "You're absolutely doing the floss." "Sarah, it's our wedding day. You have to do what I say." Marcus let himself be pulled back toward the celebration, toward the laughter and the music and the joy. He did the floss. He was terrible at it. Jalen laughed so hard he got hiccups. And Marcus Thompson, mechanic, Marine, father, husband, hero, had never been happier in his entire life. 1 year to the day after Marcus found Sarah in that frozen ditch, they returned to the spot. Not to relive the trauma, not to dwell on the past, but to acknowledge it, to honor it, to recognize that the worst night of their lives had led to the best thing that ever happened to them. Jalen was in school. Darnell was building houses in Ohio, calling every Sunday without fail, slowly becoming the man he'd always wanted to be. Harris was rotting in a federal prison, forgotten by a city that had moved on. And Marcus and Sarah stood together in the cold, looking at a drainage ditch that no longer held any power over them. "Do you regret it?" Sarah asked. "Stopping that night? Getting involved?" "Not for a second." "Even knowing everything that would happen? The danger, the fear, almost losing your son?" "Because of everything that would happen. Because of you. Because of us." Marcus squeezed her hand. "If I had kept driving that night, I would have gone home and gone to sleep and woken up the next day as the same man I'd always been. Broken, grieving, just going through the motions. And now? Now I'm alive. Really alive. For the first time since Maya died, I feel like I'm actually living instead of just surviving." Sarah leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. I think about James sometimes. I wonder if he'd be proud of what I did. If he'd approve of you.
What do you think?
I think he'd love you. I think he'd shake your hand and thank you for taking care of me.
And then he'd probably challenge you to some ridiculous competition to prove he was better. She smiled through her tears.
He was competitive like that.
Sounds like a good man.
He was. So are you.
She turned to face him.
Different kinds of good. Different kinds of love. But both real. Both precious.
They stood there for a while longer. Two people who'd found each other in the darkness and fought their way back to the light. Then they walked away, leaving the past behind, stepping into a future they would build together. That evening, Marcus sat with Jalen on the front porch, watching the sun go down.
Dad?
Yeah, little man?
Do you think Mom, my first mom, do you think she can see us?
Marcus felt his heart clench. What do you mean?
Like from heaven or wherever. Do you think she knows about Mom Sarah and Uncle Darnell and everything that happened?
I don't know, son. I like to think she does.
I think she'd be happy.
Jalen leaned against his father's side.
I think she'd be glad we're not sad anymore.
I think you're right.
I still miss her sometimes.
Me too. And that's okay. We can miss her and still be happy. Those things aren't opposites. Jalen considered this with the seriousness only a 9-year-old could muster.
Dad?
Yeah?
I'm glad you stopped that night, even though it was dangerous, even though bad things happened. I'm glad you helped Mom Sarah.
Marcus pulled his son close. Me too, little man. Me too. Sarah came out a few minutes later, carrying hot chocolate for all of them. They sat together on the porch, father, mother, son, watching the last light fade from the sky. What are you two talking about? Sarah asked. Important stuff, Jalen said. Dad stuff.
Sounds serious.
Very serious, the boy grinned. But also good serious. The best kind of serious. Sarah caught Marcus's eye over their son's head. 1,000 words passed between them without a single one being spoken. This was what it was all for. The fear, the fighting, the impossible choices made in the darkness of a frozen night. All of it had led here, to a family rebuilt from broken pieces, to a love forged in fire, to a future that was bright and wide and waiting for them. Marcus Thompson had spent years believing that the best parts of his life were behind him, that happiness was something he'd lost and could never get back. He was wrong. Happiness wasn't something you found. It was something you built, something you fought for, something you chose every single day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. He looked at his wife, his son, the home they'd made together, and he knew, with absolute certainty, that the best parts of his life weren't behind him. They were just beginning. The measure of a man isn't what he does when it's easy. It's what he does when it costs him everything. Marcus Thompson had paid the price, and he'd earned every moment of the peace that followed. The end.